For decades, living to 100 seemed like a privilege reserved for only a few people, something determined by rare genetics, extraordinary luck, or a secret that science had not yet managed to uncover. But a major review of studies on centenarians and supercentenarians has begun to challenge that idea, and what it revealed is more complex than a miracle diet, but also far more useful. Researchers gathered 124 studies published over a period of 55 years to answer a question that has fascinated generations. Why do some people live so long? They analyzed genetics, diet, physical activity, metabolism, personality, inflammation, social relationships, and living conditions. The expectation was to find one decisive factor. Perhaps a special gene, perhaps one specific habit. But the answer was different. There is no single secret to longevity. There is no pill capable of guaranteeing 100 years of life, no food that can extend life on its own, and no single longevity gene that determines who will live longer. Longevity appears to emerge from a combination of many factors, as if the body depended on an entire orchestra rather than a single instrument. But what are these factors? And more importantly, which of them are under our control? Genetics matters. People who live exceptionally long lives seem to carry genetic variations that may support metabolism, help regulate inflammation, and offer some protection against certain diseases. However, these genes do not act like a final sentence. They only change probabilities. It is like receiving a set of cards at the beginning of a game. Some people are dealt stronger cards while others receive more difficult ones. But the way those cards are played also influences the outcome. And this brings us to the first major revelation. Genetics prepares the ground, but habits help determine what happens on it. Among the centenarians studied, researchers found signs of more efficient DNA repair mechanisms. Every day, our cells face small forms of damage. DNA is harmed, proteins lose their proper shape, and the body must identify and correct these problems. In some very long-lived people, these maintenance systems appear to function better for longer. Imagine two houses exposed to the same rain and temperature changes. In one, small cracks are repaired quickly and leaks are treated before they spread. In the other, the damage accumulates. What begins as a minor issue eventually becomes a structural problem years later. The body ages in a similar way. It is not only the amount of damage that matters, but also how effectively the body can repair it. Another factor that appeared repeatedly was the ability to control inflammation. Inflammation is essential for fighting infections and healing injuries. The problem begins when it stops being temporary and becomes a permanent state. Poor diet, lack of exercise, smoking, inadequate sleep, and prolonged stress can keep this internal fire burning for years. This silent inflammation may not cause immediate pain, but little by little, it can affect blood vessels, muscles, the brain, and different organs. Many centenarians seem to have a greater ability to control this process. Part of that may be genetic, but part of it is also connected to habits built over decades. So which habits appear most often? Diet is one of them. People who live exceptionally long lives often follow a diet based mainly on plant-based foods. This does not mean they are all vegetarians. It means that fruits, vegetables, legumes, grains, and minimally processed foods make up a significant part of their meals. But there is one detail that is almost always overlooked. Many of these centenarians did not follow a longevity diet created by experts. They lived in environments where simple foods formed the foundation of daily eating. Meals were prepared at home, and they were not surrounded from childhood by ultra-processed products designed to encourage overconsumption. This raises an uncomfortable question. Did these people live longer because they had more discipline or because they lived in environments that made healthy choices easier? Longevity does not depend only on willpower. It also depends on the environment. Safe streets encourage walking, access to fresh food makes better choices easier, and active communities help preserve social connections. Another common pattern was everyday physical activity, not necessarily intense workouts or hours spent in gyms. Many centenarians simply kept their bodies moving. They walked, took care of their homes, worked in gardens, climbed stairs, and performed manual tasks. The human body does not make a perfect distinction between formal exercise and an active life. What matters is that the muscles are used, the heart is challenged, and long periods of inactivity are interrupted. This becomes even more important with age. Lack of use reduces strength and balance. A fall can cause a fracture, hospitalization, immobility, and even greater muscle loss. That is why maintaining strength is not merely about appearance. It is about preserving the ability to stand up from a chair, take a shower without assistance, carry a bag, walk to a friend's house, and continue participating in your own life. But the review revealed something even more surprising. Many centenarians do not simply live longer, they also become seriously ill later in life. This phenomenon is known as compression of morbidity. Instead of spending decades living with severe limitations, some people remain relatively functional for most of their lives and experience major health problems only during a shorter period near the end. Imagine two people who both live to 90. The first develops serious limitations at 60 and spends 3 decades dependent on care. The second remains independent until 85 and faces greater difficulties only during the final years. Both lived for the same amount of time, but they aged in completely different ways. Perhaps the most important question is not how can we live longer, but how can we remain healthy for most of our lives? Even so, not all centenarians follow the same path. Some largely avoid the major diseases associated with aging, others develop these conditions much later than average, and some become ill but manage to live with their diagnoses for decades. This shows that longevity does not necessarily mean the absence of disease. In some cases it means resistance, in others delay, and in many cases it means adaptation. This ability also appeared in personality traits. Characteristics such as resilience and a lower tendency toward emotional stress were common among the centenarians studied. Resilience does not mean never suffering. It means facing loss, crisis, and change without completely losing the ability to move forward. Anyone who lives to 100 will inevitably experience goodbyes and profound changes. Perhaps their strength lies not in avoiding pain, but in rebuilding a sense of meaning after it. And now we come to a factor that may be far more important than it appears: social relationships. Family bonds, friendships, and a sense of belonging appeared repeatedly across the studies. A conversation can reduce feelings of threat. A friend can encourage someone to leave the house. A family member may notice an early change in health. A community can offer support when independence begins to decline. These effects may seem small when viewed separately, but when accumulated over decades, they can transform a life. Loneliness is not simply being physically alone, it is feeling that your absence would not be noticed, having no one to call, and losing the sense that your presence matters. The body may respond to this isolation in much the same way it responds to other threats. But do social relationships help people live longer, or are healthier people simply better able to maintain relationships? Most likely, both are true. Good health makes social interaction easier, and social interaction encourages movement, self-care, motivation, and the decision to seek medical attention. It is a cycle. When it works, Each factor strengthens the other. When it breaks down, illness reduces mobility, the person stops going out, social contact declines, loneliness increases, and health may deteriorate even further. Now, we can return to the original question. What is already inside you? It is not a magical secret. It is a collection of systems working every day to preserve your life. Your body repairs damage, regulates inflammation, produces energy, adapts muscles to movement, and reorganizes the brain in response to new experiences. You do not control all of these processes, but you can influence part of the environment in which they operate. Movement, nutrition, sleep, avoiding smoking, medical care, social connection, and healthier ways of handling stress cannot guarantee that someone will reach 100, but together they create more favorable conditions. And there is one final revelation. The secret is not only inside you, it also exists between you and other people. It is in the friend who invites you to take a walk, in the family member who notices a change, in the conversation that makes a problem feel lighter, in the community that creates a sense of belonging, in the purpose that gives someone a reason to think about tomorrow. Science has not yet found a formula for living to 100, and perhaps it never will. But these 124 studies point toward a powerful conclusion. Living longer depends on the interaction between what we inherit, what we do, and the environment in which we live. You cannot choose every gene you were given. You cannot control everything that happens, but you can strengthen your body, protect your relationships, and build habits that support your natural ability to adapt. Perhaps true longevity is not about defeating time. Perhaps it is about going further while preserving independence, curiosity, connection, and the desire to keep living. And that process does not begin at 80. It begins today.